The Dionysica. Now, the Dionysica is an epic, longest surviving poem from the Greek scholar Nonnos. And it focuses on the life of Dionysus and his expedition into India and his triumphant return to the West. And it's covered in 48 books, over 20,400 lines. And it tells a very interesting story of Dionysus. And as I've already talked about in my research, him being the reincarnation of Zagreus. And he is the son of Zeus and Semele. Now, in the beginning of the Dionysica, it talks about Zeus's battle with Typhon. And Typhon was the last great titan to challenge him, other than Prometheus in the end, who craftily organizes the murder of Dionysus in Egypt. But for just sticking with the Dionysica, the beginning of the tale is with the help of the Phoenician prince Cadmus. Zeus is able to retrieve his weaponry, and Cadmus distracts the Titan Typhon with his music, and long enough for Zeus to get back up on his feet and go after him and win. And then it basically goes into the story of Zagreus, and that Zagreus came from Persephone and Zeus, and that eventually Zagreus was murdered and cut up and cannibalized. It also talks about the heart. There is a short reference that it was Zeus who used the heart and used it to reincarnate Zagreus. It goes on into the tale of Dionysus being raised for a little bit by some of the local women, and then Hermes takes him to Rhea, who raises him. And as he's growing up, he meets a friend named Amplius, and Amplius is his little buddy, but unfortunately Amplius gets killed when he sneaks out to ride a bull and is thrown off and killed. Now the story continues on that Dionysus grows up, and his father tells him to go out and civilize the Indians and other people in that area, which he goes out and does. He offers his gifts, and those people he encounters, or the people that he encounters, mostly accept it, although there are two Indian kings that won't, and one is Orontes and the other is Dionysius. And Orontes he pretty much defeats pretty quickly by tapping his thyrsus against Orontes. I guess that would be a metal armor, and the metal armor falls off and leaves Orontes naked and embarrasses him so much that Orontes commits suicide. But King Dionysius is the last and the most reluctant, and they go to battle for years. And it's set up to 9 years it took before he defeated King Dionysius. He ends up killing him. Now, you know, he, like I said, he ends up killing him, and then the people that remain accept his gifts. Now, Dionysus had an army of Maids and satyrs, and they assisted him. Dionysus would be the equivalent of the Hindu Krishna. He's also Osiris. He's also the Nordic Balder. And I'm kicking around a few different ideas in the Celtic religion, which I'll get into in another video. But basically, this is one portion of Dionysus's life, because he continued on into Egypt and started up the pharaonic kingdom with Isis Ariadne. But in the Dionysica, it talks about two Amazons he fell in love with, and one was Nicaea, and he basically had a daughter with her, and the other would be Aura. And he had two sons with her, but she didn't want anything to do with it. And one of them was killed, and the other was raised by, the other son of Aura was raised by Nicaea. He also meets up with Pallene, and her father was challenging anybody that wanted to marry Pallene to have to beat Pallene in a contest. If they lost, they were killed. And all the suitors couldn't do it, and then Dionysus came along, did, and ends up killing her father, and he doesn't really stay with Pallene. So in the story, he's had three loves or so to say, and then he goes on and he does meet Ariadne after she's allegedly abandoned by Theseus. And it doesn't really say that, what happened to her. There's different stories about her dying. But as I've said in my other videos, I think that was basically a cover-up at that point. They go on to reinvent themselves in Egypt. So I want to read a little bit of this. This is quite a bit, and if you're interested, you can learn a lot more by picking up these books. They're sold on Amazon. It's the Dionysiaca by Nonnos, and it's a rather interesting read. I believe that these books and the Diodorus Siculus' Library of History and a couple other ones should be mandatory reading at the high school level. Okay, I'm going to just go to some interesting passages in the book. In the introduction, it says, how and when he became identified with Dionysus to the extent to which he is in Nonnos we do not know. The strangeness of the tale, the younger god is begotten by Zeus, after having swallowed the heart of the older Zagreus, suggests something quite alien to ordinary Greek thought, and so akin to the abnormal ideas of Orphism itself. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. The mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries and the Orphic mysteries revolve around the secret of Dionysus' origin. And that's a big part of my work. As I've said, Dionysus is the reincarnation of Zagreus, who was the child of Persephone and Zeus. Okay. I'm going to see if I can find some interesting passages here quickly. Also, I do want to mention that throughout this book in Nonnos, he refers to Zeus as Cronian. So there, because he's the son of Cronus. So there's some Saturn imagery and symbolism as well. The other thing is they use this shout. It's Eoi. It's E-U-I-A-O. And it could probably be pronounced as Oi. I really have yet to figure out how they pronounce that. They even use this term, Alleluia. I'll read this. He learned that, okay, this was talking about Cadmus. And he showed forth the Euian secrets of Osiris, the wanderer, the Egyptian Dionysus. He learned the nightly celebration of their mystic art and declaimed the magic hymn in the wild secret language, intoning a shrill Alleluia. So that's rather interesting. So I'm going to guess they would say, oi, oi, oi. That would be a call out to Zeus and Dionysus. It's an exclamation. Okay, let's talk about Zagreus. I'm going to read again here from the Dionysiaca. Semele was kept for a more brilliant union, for already Zeus, ruling on high, intended to make a new Dionysus grow up. thought with regret of the ill-fated, or since he felt thought with regret of the ill-fated Zagreus. This was a son born to Zeus in dragon bed by Persephone, the consort of the black-robed king of the underworld. When Zeus put on a deceiving shape of many coils as gentle dragon, twining around her in lovely curves, and ravished the maidenhood of unwedded Persephone, though she was hidden, when all that dwelt in Olympus were bewitched by this one girl. Rivals in love for the marriageable maid, and offered their dowers for an unbesmirched bridal. Hermes had not yet gone to the bed of Pytho, and he offered his rod as a gift to adorn her chamber. Apollo produced his melodious harp as a marriage gift. Ares brought spear and cuirass for the wedding, and shield as a bride gift. Lemnian Hephaestus held out a curious necklace of many colors, new made and breathing, still of the furnace. Poor hobbler, for he had already, though unwilling, rejected his former bride Aphrodite. When he spied her riding with Ares, he displayed her to the blessed and woman thief who had robbed his bed. When by information from Phaethon he had entangled them in the spider's net, naked Ares with naked Aphrodite, and Father Zeus was more bewitched by Persephone. When Zeus spied the virgin beauty of her shape, his eye ran ahead of him to guide all the loves, and could not have enough of Persephone in his heart. Storms of unsleeping passion raged without ceasing, and gradually a greater furnace of the Paphian was kindled from a small spark. The gaze of love-maddened Zeus was enslaved by the lovely breast of the goddess. Once she was amusing herself with a resplendent bronze plate which reflected her face like a judge of beauty, and she confirmed the image of her shape by the free, voiceless herald, testing the unreal form of the shadow of the mirror, and smiling at the mimic likeness. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. Skipping ahead. Ah, maiden Persephone, you could not find how to escape your mating. No, a dragon was your mate. When Zeus changed his face and came rolling in, many a loving coil through the dark to the corner of the maiden's chamber, and shaking his hairy chaps, he lulled to sleep as he crept the eyes of those creatures of his own shape who guarded the door. He licked the girl's form gently with wooing lips. By this marriage with the heavenly dragon, the womb of Persephone swelled with living fruit, and she bore Zagreus, the horned baby, who by himself climbed upon the heavenly throne of Zeus and brandished lightning in his little hand, and newly born lifted and carried thunderbolts in his tender fingers. But he did not hold the throne of Zeus for long. By the fierce resentment of implacable Hera, the Titans cunningly smeared their round faces with disguising chalk. And while he contemplated his changeling countenance reflected in a mirror, they destroyed him with an infernal knife. There where his limbs had been cut piecemeal by the Titan steel, the end of his life was the beginning of a new life as Dionysus. All right, I'm going to stop. So it goes on, and Zeus believes that the new Dionysus is the reincarnation of Zagreus, who was the first Dionysus. And it talks about, basically that he is going to bring the wine and joy. Now, this is interesting. I'll just read a couple other statements in this Dionysica. Then all in wild jubilation will cry, Oi, spelled E-U-O-I, over the echoing table with mutual toast in honor of Dionysus, the protector of the human race. This, my son, after struggles on earth, after the battle with the giants, after the Indian War, will be received by the bright upper air to shine beside Zeus and to share the courses of the stars. So the god shall wind a tendril of garden vines laid upon the bright ivy round his locks for his new godhead. He shall have equal honor with the gods, and among men he shall be named Dionysus of the vine, as Hermes is called goldenrod, Ares brazen, Apollo far shooter. Okay, I'm going to stop. That basically is the pharaonic the Osirian pharaonic line that was created to guide the human race and teach them, the fruits of the vine and agriculture and to follow just laws. And he went on for a bit, and eventually he was killed in Egypt through the actions of Prometheus and the other conspirators. Now, an interesting thing as well is that Dionysus had to be very tall and strong and brave. When he was brought to Rhea, in the book, the Dionysiaca, it says, at 9 years old, the youngster went to hunting, his game to the kill. He passed the coursing hare with feet, quicker still, following after the strong pricked speed. He would lift with childish hand the dapple fawn and carry it over his neck. He would hold lightly aloft, stretched on his shoulders, a bold, fell-strapped tiger unshackled and brought in hand to show Rhea the cubs he had torn newborn from the dam's milky teats. He dragged horrible lions all alive and clutching a couple of feet in each hand presented them to the mother, and she might yoke them to her car. Rhea looked on laughingly with joy and admired the manliness and doughty feats of young Dionysus. His father, Cronion, laughed when he saw with delighted eyes Iobacchus driving the grim lions. Okay, so how big was this kid at 9 years old to be getting lions and bringing them to be used as you would use a horse to pull a chariot? Rather interesting. Now, the other interesting thing about Dionysus is they raised him to be dressed as a girl to hide him from his enemies, and he kept that transvestitism through adulthood. I'm going to read again here. They were the cherishing saviors of Dionysus when he was hidden from every eye, and then they had nothing strange in their shape. In the dark cellar they often dandled the child in bended arms as he cried "Daddy" to the sky, the seat of his father Zeus, still a child at play but a clever babe. Oft he would mimic a newborn kid hiding in the fold. He covered his body with long hair and in the strange shape let out a deceptive bleat between his teeth and pretended to walk on hooves and goat-like steps. Oft he would show himself like a young girl in saffron robes and take on the feigned shape of a woman to mislead the mind of spiteful Hera. He molded his lips to speak in a girlish voice, tied a scented veil on his hair. He put on all woman's many-colored garments, fastened a maiden's vest about the chest and the firm circle of his bosom, and fitted a purple girdle over his hips like a band of maidenhood. But his guile was useless. Hera, who turns her all-seeing eye to every place, saw from on high the ever-changing shape of Laios and knew all. Then she was angry with the guardians of Bromius. She procured from the Thessalian Aclis treacherous flowers of the field and shed a sleep of enchantment over their heads. She distilled poisoned drugs over their hair. She smeared a subtle magical ointment over their faces and changed their earlier human shape. Then they took the form of a creature with long ears and a horse's tail sticking straight from their loins and flogging the flanks of its shaggy crested owner. From the temple's cow's horns sprouted out. Their eyes widened under the horned forehead. Their hair ran across the heads in tufts. Long white teeth grew out of their jaws. A strange kind of mane grew of itself, covering their necks with rough hair, and ran down from the loins to the feet underneath. So, I'm going to stop. Basically, he had to disguise himself till he was old enough to defend himself. Now I'm going to just read real quick about these Indian kings that went up against him, and it's just a quick summary before it gets into the whole story in this Dionysica. It says, make not war against a god, foolish Indians, the son of Zeus, lest Bacchus turn you also, threatening battle into stone, as Apollo did to me, lest you have to lament a shape like my stony shape, lest you see the good son of Dionysius, Indian Orontes, fallen beside the stream of the river that bears his name. Rhea in wrath is stronger than the archeress. Flee from Bacchus, Apollo's brother. It would be a shame if I must see Indians being slain and weep for strangers. Okay. And then let me read this. In the morning the god went forth to war, driving before him the violence of the black men, that he might free the neck of the Lydians and those who dwelt in Phrygia and Ascania from the yoke of cruel tyranny. Then Bacchus sent 2 heralds to give proclamation of war, either to fight or to fly, and with them went Goatfoot Pan, his long-haired beard shadowing his whole chest. But swift-shoe Hera, likening herself to an Indian, the curly-headed Melanius, warned Astraeus, that spear-shaking captain of men, not to uplift the thyrsus, nor to heed the yell of drunken satyrs, but to raise war to the death against Dionysus. She spoke these words to move the Indian chief. You're a nice one, to fare a feeble troop of women. Fight, Astraeus, arm yourself too, Selenius, and take a sharp blade to cut down Dionysus and his ivy bunches. Thyrsus is no match for spear. No, look out for Dionysius. He will be mad and make an end of you if you shrink from a weak, unarmed woman. She spoke, the stepmother furious against indomitable Dionysus. The goddess got her way and hid in darkness. Okay, so I'm going to stop. These gods and goddesses were white. They were tall. They're described as wheaten-haired, at other times red-haired or auburn-haired. These Indians were described as black, just as I will show you that in Sumer, those people were also considered black-headed, and that'll be in another video. But every time Dionysus's people would win, they would take a lot of these maidens and mate with them. And yeah, this is a touchy subject, but really I'm getting so sick and tired of the lies and the cover-ups and the extreme effort that is placed to not tell the truth that these were Caucasoid people and to steal the history of my people, because these are, in fact, my ancestors, as probably most Europeans. And I'm just going to basically put it out there as it is, and if people get upset about it, that's really their problem. I'm not going to pull the punches anymore, or dance around it of what's been done to us, and how this has been hidden from us, and an alien religion placed upon us. So I'm going to read a little bit more here, and then I'm going to wrap it up here with this Dionysica. So the book goes on, and he defeats Orontes quite easily. and he uses his alcohol to get the troops drunk, and that's another way that he beats them. But Dionysius won't participate in any of that. So they have to go. End up going to war for quite a while, but he defeats them. So here's just another confirmation about Dionysus and Zagreus. It just says, "The stream you have crossed is no stranger to your name, for I have washed another Dionysus in my bath, from the same name as the younger Bromius, when Cronion entrusted Zagreus to the care of my nursing nymphs. Why, you have the whole shape of Zagreus. Grant this favor, then, although you long after to him from whom you are sprung, for you came from the heart of the firstborn Dionysus, so celebrated. Respect the water of your Lamos, who cherished your childhood. Remember Maeonia, your own country, for Hydaspes is brother of your charming Pactolus." Hydaspes is a river, and that's where he ended up killing King Dioetes. Now I'm going to skip a little bit to some other interesting passages to kind of back up what I've said and finish this up. It says, but Zagreus, again from the Dionysiaca, but Zagreus, the heavenly Dionysus, he would not defend when he was cut up with knives. Okay, let's skip. Let not Athens sing hymns to a new Dionysus. Let him not have equal honor with the Eleusinian Dionysus. Let him not take over the rights of Iacchus, who was there before him. Let not his vintage dishonor Demeter's basket. The whole mind of Persephone was perturbed while she spoke, babbling deceit, as the false tears bedewed her cheeks. Goddess bowed assent to goddess, and gave her Megaria to go with her, that with her evil eye she might fulfill the desire of Hera's jealous heart. Okay, so basically that confirms what I've been telling you all along, that these people were white. They were, the gods of old. They were tall. They conquered the world. They got rid of anybody that was in their way. They spread their gifts and mysteries. And they took on many names in different cultures. And Dionysus is the heir to Zeus, the father god, who is your Abrahamic God, to his throne. And his bloodline were the Osirian pharaohs, not the red-haired Scythian pharaohs, but the Osirian pharaohs who ended up going into Ireland and different places. So, let me see if there's anything else here real quick I want to read. Here's one more passage from the Dionysiaca. I have heard how Zeus once gave his throne and the scepter of Olympus as prerogative to Zagreus, the ancient Dionysus, lightning to Zagreus, vine to wine-face Bacchus. Okay, so that just backs up what I just told you. So, if you'd like to learn a lot more, like I said, you may pick up these books off of Amazon. You can read about it on the internet, and some of this may even be out on the internet for free. You might be able to find a copy of this somewhere, depending on copyright rules. I know a lot of the Library of History is not copyrighted anymore. Parts of it is, but most of it isn't. So that is my presentation on the Dionysiaca, which is the story of Dionysus, and this is, a good portion of his life, but it's not all of it, and you can find other parts of it in the Library of History by Diodorus Siculus and some of the work of Plutarch, which I'm going to cover in another video, and various other places. But it is a very good detailed account of a lot of his life and basically reveals a hidden human story or a secret within the hidden human story of mythology. And that is that Zagreus was the son of Persephone and Zeus and was killed. His heart remained. Zeus ate it or gave it to Semele and reincarnated him into the body of Dionysus, who became the heir to the throne of God, who is Zeus. And all of the pharaonic bloodline is the heir. And they ended up into Ireland and various places over in Irish or over in America. So all over the world. And that is another major hidden human story. So that's it. Thanks for listening.